Hey everybody, this is Fabio here at BoomBox, the home of collaboration. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at my 2024 mastering chain. For those of you who are unfamiliar with mastering, this is the process that happens right at the end of the track. So usually it goes something like singing, songwriting, recording, production, those all happen together. Then it gets passed on for mixing, and after mixing, it goes to mastering. Final mastering is the process in which the full track gets adjusted for things like tone, such as EQ, dynamics with compression, perhaps some saturation to warm things up a little, maybe a little widening to make things sound more stereo, and finally using tools such as clippers and limiters to make it loud enough to compete with commercial releases. The track we're going to be using today is a song of my own, which by the time you're watching this video probably has been released. If you want to listen to the full thing, I'll leave a link in the description below. But for now, let's take a listen to the final chorus. When mastering your own track, it's important to set a loop around the loudest point, because the loudest part of your track is what's going to trigger the effects on your mastering chain the most. Let's take a look at some of those effects that I'm using. Now, initially I start with the Pro L2. I like to limit my track straight away just to catch any peaks. The reason for this is I don't want any of the effects in the chain overreacting to some dynamics that I could very transparently and easily deal with in the beginning of the mastering process. You can see that it's not doing a whole lot of limiting here and taking out some of the peaks intermittently. Next up, I'm using the Dangerous Backs EQ by Plugin Alliance. I'm mainly using this for a low cut and the high shelf. I love the low cut here at 18 Hz. It's very smooth. It just takes out enough low end that it gives me a bit of headroom. So by shaving off some of the low frequencies, it means I'm going to be able to make my track louder in the end. I also find that I like to brighten my masters a little bit by adding a high shelf boost at 2.5 kilohertz. Very subtly cutting out that low end, adding a bit of presence. And one more thing it's doing is I'm also cutting at 70,000 Hz, which humans cannot hear, but the slope is so gradual and gentle that it is actually coming into the 20,000 Hz range, and Dangerous claim that this takes out some of those digital sounding frequencies which can build up during the production, mixing and mastering process. Next, I'm using a compressor. This is one of my go-to compressors. This is the SSL Native Bus compressor 2. There are lots of emulations of this. This is my current favorite. Now, the way I have this set up is a slow attack, auto release, a ratio at 4, and I have my sidechain at 90 Hz. The reason for this is it stops the compressor overreacting to the frequencies under 90 Hz by cutting them out with a very gentle slope. I don't want my kick and bass to make the compressor pump. I want it to be reacting to the rest of the frequency spectrum as much as the low end. This compressor is great for gluing things together. I also find it adds a very subtle brightness to the signal, which can be great for pop style tracks like this one. The two specialized plugins which I use are Oak Sound Soothe 2 with the Master Start preset. But I do have this oversample and resolution mode to be the highest, but only when it's offline, because otherwise it can be very, very CPU heavy. And I'm using the Gullfoss Master by Sound Theory. This is a very clever dynamic EQ which changes 300 times per second. With Recover, you can uncover frequencies which aren't dominant enough, And with tame, you can bring those dominant frequencies down. Sooth and Gullfoss together are very subtle, but very powerful when it comes to balancing your master. Next, we have the Amec 200, which is an EQ. I didn't actually use the EQ on this master, but this is great, very transparent. It's perfect for boosting. I don't really tend to cut during the mastering process, just boost. And one of my favorite things it has is this auto listen feature, which allows you to hone in on the frequencies that you're targeting. Check it out. Now, whether this master is for you, a client, or a band member, just remember that you're going to need somewhere to save and store it securely. That's why BoomBox.io is the perfect solution for you. Forget Dropbox, forget SoundCloud and Google Drive. We have created the perfect tool for you. Just like Dropbox, you can upload your files, but in BoomBox, you can share them with different levels of permission, depending on who you think should have what kind of access. Once you've done that, you can leave timestamp feedback in text or as a voice note with your collaborators, so that any changes you need to make going forward are all saved to the same place. Not only is it going to keep you organized, it's going to help you stick to your timeline so you don't miss that sacred release date. It's completely free to sign up. Link is in the description below, and let's get back to finishing this master. If you've ever wondered how mastering engineers get that really thick and loud sound, well, this is one of the best kept secrets. The Oxford Inflator by Sonox is an amazing tool for bringing up all the low level information, kind of in the way a compressor would, but in a more subtle and transparent way. Now that I'm done shaping the signal, it's time to clip and limit to get it up to the right volume. I like to use standard clip on the Soft Clip Pro setting, and I always have my soft clip saturator set at 3%. Right now I have oversampling at ×4. This is just for the sake of this video, but I would turn this up to 16 later when I'm exporting to get the highest quality sound possible. I'm looking just to clip ever so slightly here, shave off some of the peak, which is going to allow me to limit the signal after the clipper more evenly.
Everything's in motion. In motion.
The first limiter I go into is the Pro L2, exactly the same one as you saw at the beginning of the chain. I am using this in 1:1 mode, so as I increase the gain, it is also decreasing the output. So I'm not just adding a bunch of volume, and I can turn it on and off and have a fair A/B comparison to really understand how it's affecting the signal when it's compressing it. I've got it in transparent mode, look ahead at 1, the slowest attack possible with the fastest release, and no channel linking on the transient and release. What that means is there's an independent compressor for the left and the right signal, which allows the track to feel more open and stereo. And last but not least, one of my favorite plugins that I've added to my toolkit, which has now become a staple and essential plugin for mastering, is the Master Plan by Music Hack. Why is it so good? Well, number one, they have this huge loud dial in the middle, and it does exactly what it says. It's a clipper and a limiter combined, and it can really get your tracks to sound as loud as you want them to. I do recommend still going through a clipper and a limiter beforehand very gently, but this plugin has got my mixes louder than ever before. And you can see there, we're comfortably sitting at just under 8 LUFS. Things still sound transparent, still sounds dynamic and punchy and thick and full. So it's all about taking those incremental steps to making your master sound as good as possible. But be warned, a bad mix cannot be saved by a great master, and an even worse production can't be saved by a great mix. So always make sure you're paying close attention to the quality of the root of the sound, and every other step after that should be. Now, when you export your master, you want to make sure that you have a PCM version, which is WAV, and then MP3. The settings should look something like this. And don't forget that you should be exporting it to boombox.io because it's completely free to store it there. You can share it with your bandmates, clients, and collaborators, leave timestamp feedback, and become a player in the new industry standard. Welcome to BoomBox, the home of collaboration. It's been a pleasure as always, and I'll see you very soon. Peace!